This story comes from Mark, who thought he'd found the perfect roommate, until the truth surfaced in the most disturbing way. Mark had just started a new job in a city where he didn't know anyone. To save money, he put up an ad looking for a roommate. A man named Tyler replied within hours, claiming he also worked in the city and needed a place quickly. He seemed normal, friendly, polite, and willing to pay rent on time. Mark agreed, relieved to have the financial burden lifted. At first, Tyler was easy to live with. He was quiet, often gone for long stretches, and when he was around, he kept to himself. But small red flags appeared almost immediately. Tyler never let Mark into his room. Whenever the door opened, even briefly, Mark caught glimpses of black garbage bags stacked against the walls. The smell from inside was strange, chemical, sour, and heavy. When Mark asked about it, Tyler laughed it off, saying he was just messy. Mark didn't push, though unease lingered. Then, late one night, Mark came home early from work. As he unlocked the front door, he heard hurried shuffling inside. Tyler appeared in the hallway, startled, his clothes spattered with something dark. Mark asked what had happened, but Tyler only muttered that he'd spilled sauce while cooking. There was no food smell, and no dishes in the sink. The next morning, Mark noticed something worse. The rug in the living room had been flipped over, fresh stains soaking through the fabric. When he confronted Tyler again, he snapped, saying Mark should mind his own business. From then on, the tension grew unbearable. Tyler started watching him constantly, his eyes following every move. Mark began locking his bedroom door at night, unable to shake the feeling that Tyler might come in while he slept. Then came the discovery. While Tyler was out one weekend, Mark's unease got the better of him. He opened Tyler's bedroom door. The stench hit immediately, rot and chemicals mixed into something nauseating. Inside, the garbage bags weren't full of trash. They were stuffed with clothing, shoes, and personal belongings. Women's belongings. In the corner of the room, taped to the wall, were driver's licenses and ID cards, at least a dozen of them. Every face was female. Some of the names matched missing person reports Mark remembered seeing on the news. His stomach dropped as he spotted something else on the desk, a photo of himself, clearly taken through the crack of his bedroom door while he slept. Shaken, he stumbled back, nearly knocking over a chair. That's when he noticed the closet door was slightly ajar. Inside, in the darkness, came the faintest sound of breathing. Mark bolted from the room, heart racing, and didn't stop running until he was outside dialing 911. When police arrived, Tyler was gone. But what they found in that room was enough to make headlines for weeks. Tyler hadn't just been a bad roommate. He had been living a double life, one that Mark barely escaped from. This story comes from Carla, who thought moving in with a close friend would make life easier, but soon discovered her roommate was hiding something terrifying. Carla had been best friends with Jasmine since high school. When they both got accepted into the same university, it felt natural to share an off-campus apartment. At first, everything was perfect. They split rent, decorated the place together, and had late-night movie marathons. But by the end of the first semester, Carla noticed Jasmine was changing. She became secretive, locking her bedroom door at all times. She stopped going to class regularly, often awake at odd hours of the night. Carla would sometimes wake at 3 a.m. to faint whispers through the thin walls, Jasmine talking to someone in a low, urgent tone. When Carla asked who she was on the phone with, Jasmine brushed it off as friends back home. But something about her excuses didn't sit right. One evening, Carla returned from a study session to find the apartment completely dark. She set her bag down quietly, heading to her room, when she noticed Jasmine's door cracked open. Inside, lit only by the glow of a laptop screen, Jasmine was hunched over, whispering rapidly. Carla paused, listening. Jasmine wasn't on the phone. She was speaking directly to her computer camera, saying things like, "I'll do it soon. She doesn't suspect anything." Carla's stomach turned as she realized Jasmine was talking about her. She backed away silently, heart pounding. From that night on, Carla slept with her door locked. But the paranoia only grew. She began noticing strange things. Her shampoo levels lower than they should be, her food in the fridge slightly rearranged, her clothes smelling faintly of Jasmine's perfume. One morning, she woke to find her bedroom window cracked open, even though she never touched it. Worse, on her desk was a folded piece of notebook paper. In neat handwriting were the words, "I watch you while you sleep." Terrified, Carla confronted Jasmine, demanding an explanation. Jasmine's expression didn't falter. Instead, she smiled coldly and said, "Maybe you just dreamed it." Carla wanted to move out immediately, but her parents insisted she finish the semester before making any drastic changes. So she endured, always on edge. Then, one night, Carla woke to the sound of her bedroom door creaking. Her heart hammered as she reached for her phone flashlight. Standing in the doorway was Jasmine, holding a large kitchen knife. Her eyes looked vacant, her lips moving as if whispering to someone unseen. Carla shouted at her to leave, but Jasmine didn't respond. She stepped forward slowly, knife glinting in the dim light. Carla scrambled out of bed, pushing past her and locking herself in the bathroom. She dialed 911, shaking uncontrollably. By the time police arrived, Jasmine was gone. But in her room, they found something worse. Pinned to the walls were dozens of photos of Carla, taken at different times throughout their months together. Some while she was studying, some while she was in the shower, and others while she was asleep. At the center of the wall, written in red marker, were the words, "She's mine." This story comes from Ethan, who learned too late that sometimes the person you share a home with isn't who they seem. Ethan was in his early 20s, finishing college and struggling to afford rent on his own. When a guy named Lucas responded to his roommate ad, it felt like a stroke of luck. Lucas was quiet, polite, and seemed normal enough during the interview. He worked nights at a warehouse, meaning Ethan would usually have the place to himself. The first couple of weeks went smoothly. Lucas always paid his share of rent on time and barely made a mess. But Ethan began noticing small things that didn't sit right. His bedroom door, always locked, sometimes felt off, like the handle had been tampered with. Once, he came home and found the door slightly ajar, even though he knew he had locked it that morning. When he confronted Lucas, he brushed it off with a laugh, saying maybe Ethan had just forgotten. But Ethan knew he hadn't. Then he started finding his belongings moved. A notebook from his desk left open to private pages. His laundry basket shifted, clothes neatly folded inside when he hadn't done them. The strangest thing was his toothbrush. It always seemed damp in the morning, even on days he hadn't used it. Unease built in his stomach, but he didn't want to accuse Lucas without proof. One night, Ethan woke up to a faint creak outside his door. His heart pounded as he sat up in bed, listening. Slow, deliberate footsteps padded down the hallway. They stopped right outside his door. Ethan held his breath, staring at the shadow beneath the crack of the door. After a long silence, the shadow moved away, and the footsteps faded. He hardly slept after that. The next day, he bought a cheap motion-activated camera and set it up facing his bedroom door. That night, he locked his door as usual and went to bed early. At around 2 a.m., the faint chime of the camera activating jolted him awake. He lay frozen, listening as someone gently turned his doorknob. The next morning, his stomach churned as he checked the footage. The grainy video showed Lucas creeping down the hallway, pausing at Ethan's door. For nearly 10 minutes he stood there, his face inches from the door, just listening. Then, slowly, he pulled something from his pocket, a small set of keys. He tried each one in the lock, testing them one by one. Luckily, none worked. The footage ended with Lucas placing his hand flat on the door, whispering something Ethan couldn't make out. Ethan's hands shook as he replayed the clip. He wanted to storm into Lucas's room and confront him, but fear kept him still. Instead, he decided to pack some essentials and stay at a friend S' place until he figured out what to do. When he returned later that week to grab more of his stuff, something made his blood run cold. Inside his closet, tucked beneath a pile of his clothes, was a small box that didn't belong to him. Opening it, he found dozens of Polaroid photos. All of them were of him, sleeping in bed, sitting at his desk, brushing his teeth. The photos had been taken inside his own room. At the very bottom of the stack was the most recent photo, dated just 2 nights before. It showed Ethan asleep, the angle from directly above him, which meant Lucas hadn't just been standing outside his door. Somehow, he had already been inside.